You always think the ultimate betrayal will come from someone you trust in the adult world. A spouse, a business partner, maybe a lifelong friend. You never expect to be outplayed, manipulated, and utterly humiliated by someone whose diapers you used to change, someone who barely reaches your kneecaps. But that is exactly what happened to me. I was thrust into a psychological war of attrition right in my own living room, and my opponent was a 4-year-old mastermind disguised in Spider-Man pajamas. This was not just a difficult day of parenting. This was a calculated, malicious compliance campaign designed to completely break my sanity. And when I finally realized what was happening, when I saw the absolute defiance in his eyes, I realized the only way to survive was to sink to his level and show him exactly what happens when you play mind games with a sleep-deprived father who has absolutely nothing left to lose. To understand the sheer magnitude of this psychological warfare, you have to understand my mental state at the time. My wife and I had just welcomed a newborn baby into the house. If you have kids, you know the drill. We were functioning on maybe 3 hours of broken sleep a night. My brain felt like it was wrapped in a thick layer of fog. Meanwhile, my 4-year-old son, Leo, was functioning at peak performance. Leo is a bit of a pest on a good day, but on this particular Tuesday, he woke up and decided that pure, unadulterated rage was the answer. From the moment his feet hit the floor, he was a lawyer trapped in a toddler's body, constantly testing our rules, searching for loopholes, and looking for any workaround to establish his dominance. By 5 o'clock in the evening, I was no longer trying to be parent of the year. I wasn't trying to teach life lessons. I was purely in survival mode. I just needed to keep everybody alive until bedtime. My wife was upstairs trying to soothe the crying newborn, leaving me alone on the front lines to deal with Leo. The evening started innocently enough. We ate dinner. I made burgers, his favorite. He ate a good portion, had a snack, and drank a full glass of milk. But the moment the plates were cleared, the demands began. I informed him, very clearly, that dinner was over. If he wanted anything else to eat, it would be an apple or a banana from the fruit bowl on the counter. He looked at me, completely ignoring the fruit bowl, and proceeded to ask for yogurt. I said no. He asked for a string cheese. I said no. He asked for leftover pasta, a popsicle, more milk, and a handful of shredded cheddar. He basically stood there and listed the entire inventory of our refrigerator. I did not want to leave my son hungry, but I knew his game. I was thinking logically. If he was genuinely starving, he would eventually go for the fruit, and then we could reassess the situation. So, I put my foot down, I looked him dead in the eye, and reiterated my rule with absolute clarity. He was no longer allowed to eat any food from the fridge. Period. I walked away, feeling a brief, foolish sense of victory. I sat down on the couch in the living room, letting out a deep sigh, thinking I had finally established a boundary. But less than 5 minutes later, I heard it. From the kitchen, a very distinct rhythmic sound echoed through the hallway. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It was a weird, dry crunching noise. It didn't sound like an apple. It didn't sound like any human snack we kept in the pantry. Confused, I pushed myself off the couch and proceeded to the kitchen to investigate. As I turned the corner, the sight before me made my blood run cold. There was my son, sitting cross-legged on the floor next to the pantry. He looked me right in the eye, maintaining aggressive, unblinking eye contact, and reached his little hand into a bright yellow bag. He pulled out a handful of Meow Mix cat kibble, popped it into his mouth, and started munching. I was paralyzed. I couldn't comprehend the level of disrespect. Before I could even formulate the words to stop him, he swallowed, smiled a devious little smirk, and said, "This doesn't come from the fridge, Daddy." And then he started laughing, a chilling, triumphant toddler laugh. He had found the loophole. He had maliciously complied with my exact phrasing. I told him no food from the fridge. He found food that wasn't in the fridge. Beaten, broken, and utterly defeated by a person who doesn't even know how to tie his own shoes, I surrendered. I offered him a cracker, something, anything that wasn't meant for a feline, but just as I suspected, he wasn't actually hungry. He refused the cracker. He just wanted to prove a point. He wanted to show me that my rules meant nothing. Well, I thought, at least the cat food expedited the toothbrushing operation for the evening. But the betrayal was far from over. Bedtime was right around the corner. I love my son, I really do, but it had been a brutally long day. Every muscle in my body ached, and I was desperately looking forward to spending just a tiny bit of quiet time with my newborn after running around with a tiny dictator all day long. The very last thing on the schedule before bedtime is the mandatory pre-bedtime bathroom trip. And of course, in Leo's world, this couldn't be simple. This turned into a grueling 10-minute negotiation about which bathroom in the house he was going to use. He wanted to use the downstairs bathroom. Then he changed his mind and wanted the upstairs master bath. Then he wanted the hallway bathroom. He changed his mind 30 times, stalling for time, watching the frustration build in my eyes. Finally, my patience completely snapped. I threw my hands in the air and barked, "I really don't care where you pee, Leo. Just go pee." That was a fatal error. The absolute wrong choice of words. Never, ever use absolute statements with a malicious complier. I left him in the hallway and went into his bedroom to pick out a bedtime storybook and turn on his nightlight, assuming he would use the toilet directly across the hall. 2 minutes pass. Then I hear it. "Daddy." His voice echoed from the hallway bathroom. I walked into the bathroom ready to help him wash his hands, but when I stepped inside, the room looked empty. I couldn't see him. The toilet lid was still closed. It took my sleep-deprived brain a full 3 seconds to register the rustling noise behind the shower curtain. Confused and filled with a sudden sense of dread, I pulled the curtain back and asked what he needed. There he was, standing right in the middle of the dry porcelain bathtub. He looked up at me with big, innocent eyes and pointed down. His left foot was a bit damp, and he casually asked for help cleaning it up. I stared at his foot. I stared at the yellow puddle swirling near the drain of my bathtub. He had taken my words literally. I said I didn't care where he peed, just that he peed. So he chose the tub. Yeah, let's just say the towel I used to wipe his foot ended up straight in the washing machine on a sanitized cycle, and for the first time in history, we didn't need to flush the toilet after a bathroom break. I put him to bed without saying another word. I turned off the light, closed the door, and walked downstairs. At the time, I laughed it off. I chalked it up to me needing to use more precise language, but as I sat in the dark living room at midnight, feeding the newborn, a different feeling washed over me. The laughter faded, replaced by a cold, calculating realization. He wasn't just being a quirky kid. He was weaponizing my own instructions against me. He was playing chess while I was playing checkers. He ate cat food to mock my fridge rule. He peed in the tub to mock my bathroom rule. He thought he was untouchable. He thought he had outsmarted the system, but what Leo didn't realize was that malicious compliance is a two-way street. If he wanted to live by the exact, literal interpretation of the rules, if he wanted to act like an uncivilized feral animal in my house, then I was going to treat him exactly like one. I spent the next 2 hours formulating a plan. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to punish him. I was going to give him exactly what he asked for. I was going to give him a taste of his own medicine, served ice cold. The next morning, Saturday, the games began. Leo marched downstairs, full of confidence, demanding his morning cartoons on the iPad and a bowl of sugary cereal. I smiled warmly. "I'm sorry, buddy," I said, "but remember last night? You showed me that you don't eat human food from the fridge. You eat cat food. And as we all know, cats don't know how to use iPads. Wild animals don't get screen time." He froze. His confident smirk vanished. He tried to argue, telling me he was a human boy. I shook my head, keeping my voice dangerously calm and literal. No, humans use toilets. Humans eat human food. You made it very clear last night that you prefer the lifestyle of the family pet. And in this house, pets don't get iPads. I took the iPad off the counter and locked it in my office drawer. First strike. An hour later, hunger set in. He walked into the kitchen and demanded a snack. Real human food this time. A peanut butter sandwich. I agreed instantly. Of course, Leo, coming right up. I made the sandwich. I cut it into perfect little squares, but I didn't put it on a plate at the kitchen table. Oh no. I walked over to the corner of the kitchen, right next to the pantry where the cat food was kept. I placed the sandwich directly onto a plastic frisbee on the floor. I turned to him and smiled. Here you go. Lunch is served. But remember, animals don't use chairs, and they definitely don't use their hands. The look of pure, unadulterated betrayal on his face was cinematic. He looked at the sandwich on the floor. He looked up at me. He realized the trap he had walked into. My logic was flawless, based entirely on the precedent he had set the night before. He tried to break me. He threw a tantrum. He screamed that he wanted to sit at the big table like a big boy. But I held the line with ruthless, malicious compliance. I really don't care where you eat, I said, echoing his bathroom incident. But this is where the animal food goes. If you want to be a big boy who follows the rules, you can sit at the table. But if you want to find loopholes, you eat on the floor. He stood there for a full 3 minutes, his tiny brain working in overdrive, trying to find a way out of the maze I had built, but there was no exit. I had cornered the mastermind. Slowly defeated, he picked up the sandwich, walked over to the dining room table, sat in his chair, and ate it quietly. No complaints, no loopholes, just a broken little rebel realizing that his father was the final boss of malicious compliance. The rest of the weekend was remarkably peaceful. There were no more weird crunching noises from the pantry. There were no more damp surprises in the bathtub. The rules of the house were suddenly respected with a newfound reverence. He realized that the structure and the rules weren't there to oppress him. They were there to keep him from having to eat off a frisbee on the floor. I learned a valuable lesson that day too. I learned that as a father, I have to be incredibly precise with my language. But more importantly, I taught my son a lesson he will never forget. You can try to outsmart the system, you can look for the loopholes, and you might even win a battle or two. But if you push a sleep-deprived father too far, he will rewrite the rulebook, and he will beat you at your own game.